Welcome to this very detailed lesson dedicated to the Polonaise in A-flat major by Frédéric Chopin, and in this video I'm going to speak more about efficiency, about how to get rid of tension, how to play this piece with ease as much as possible, and in the next lesson we are going to speak more about interpretation. If you watch this on YouTube, you might consider to check the link in the description in order to get access to the full master course dedicated to this piece. So already from bar 1 we have these double notes, which might be a little bit tricky to execute. What we have to remember is that, independently from the fingering which you choose here, when we play parallel notes like these, you might provide physical legato just in one voice, in this case in the upper voice, releasing the other voice faster whenever you feel even a little bit of tension and clumsiness. So this is what happens. I connect the upper voice to 4, going to 1-3, but connect only the upper voice. The next one is fine. I can connect 1-3 into 4, absolutely fine. 1-5, also good. Here I can connect that, but if you feel that your hand lacks necessary plasticity, then you also can release the lower voice a bit faster. So this is also an option, connecting just the upper voice. And of course fingers are quite flattened here. In order to manage these tricky turns, your fingers should be really flattened, and the left hand, of course, much easier. What we have to do here, of course, is start really soft. So I would suggest you to approach the keys with relaxed fingers, diving in the keys quite gently here, and then you make crescendo for the last 3 notes. So all that is played softly, and only 3 last notes you play a bit more sharply, like that. This part is not too difficult, but nevertheless, you might consider going in the keyboard for the middle fingers, 2-4. I play it actually with 5-4, 2-1. However, there is also a suggestion of playing it with 5-4-1-2, with the second finger on E flat, which you also might consider. And in the left hand also, I play that within one hand position, 1-2-5-4. But there is also a suggestion in the Octave edition, for example, 2-1, 5-4, 2-1. 5-4. So, but independently from which fingering you pick up here, of course, very important not to accumulate static tension in the hands and move a little bit around, especially between fingers 5 and 4. So finger 5 on movement out of the keyboard, and 4 you go a little bit forward. You can even add a little bit of rounded motion here, like going a little bit higher with the wrist, lower. 1-5 lower and 2-4 higher. However, if you exaggerate that motion even a little bit, you might feel yourself even more clumsier. That's why this motion, if you do any like rounded motion with the wrist, it should be really tiny. Not more than that. Of course, releasing the hands before hitting the chord here. Release and then hit the chord. So at first practice with the gap in order to be able to quickly release the hands between the passage and the chord. Then the next one, same thing. You start very gently, pulling motions, diving in the keys, like that. Same thing. If you feel any kind of stretch, you can release the upper voice a bit faster. However, this passage is actually quite comfortable. Then, of course, we would voice all these chords, making sure that upper voice is played a little bit louder. Same thing here. You might notice that if you tend to play this efficiently, your hands are going to make a little bit different motions. Here we have this kind of motion. In the left hand we have a different motion, pull, push, so out of the keyboard, in the keyboard, 2 notes out, 2 notes in. In the right hand you have the first and the last note played out on a pull-in motion, and everything what is in between, fingers 2-4, in. So out, in, out, in. So the shape is a little bit different. That's why the hands are going to move a little bit off sync, like not together. You see, they do a little bit different motions. Yeah, so 2 notes out, 2 notes in for the left hand, and for the right hand, the first note out, 2 notes in, last note also out. So the middle of that structure is a little bit higher than the first and the last note. Same thing, releasing the hands before the chord, and the next passage in bar 9 is a little bit tricky, and I suggest you to distribute it between hands a little bit differently, not as it is written. What I would do here, I would take the first 2 middle notes, A natural and B flat, in the left hand. So instead of one voice, we play 2 voices in the beginning of that passage. 2 4 1 3. And then 2 1 3 2 1. So this is your finger in the right hand, and in the left hand you start with 1 2, just one voice, and then you play both voices starting from E natural. And this group of 3 fourth you play with 1 3 1 4 2 5, and the last 2 with 1 4 2 5. So you break it into groups first, just 2 notes in the right hand, D natural, E flat, and then 3 parallel fourth from E natural to G, and another last two fourth. So you break this passage like this, like 2 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes in groups, making sure that you release the hand properly between groups. And you can also use motion out in, out in, out in, like that. Pull in motion and go in the keyboard, like push a bit, like that. But finger release is essential between these groups, like that. So at first you master it in groups, then you add the left hand, like that. And only then you smoothen that and play the whole passage through. And of course, again, we start very gently, activating just the last 3 notes, or even 2 notes. Again, voicing the upper voice. And the last one is quite comfortable, actually. I always use 2 4 1 5 for this one, like that. This is another spot which you might optimize a little bit, because the right hand here is not exactly very comfortable. I mean, this is not really comfortable. For example, in bar 14, this might seem a little bit too wide for most of people. For example, this is even a little bit too wide for me. So in order to make it more efficient, I take that E flat in bar 14 in the left hand. So in the left hand you play the octave and E flat in between, like that. You can voice them in order to make sure that the octaves sound louder. But nevertheless, taking that E flat in the left hand helps a lot. That's why in the right hand you can use 5 2 and 1. 5 2 1 and 3 1. Here you already play as it is written. So left hand, like that. This helps a lot. When you coordinate this, of course, I would suggest you to divide first the passage, the octave passage, and this bar, in order to manage that coordination puzzle a little bit faster and smoother. Release. So at first, practicing like that. Regarding octaves, of course, you play them using gravity at first, and making sure that your hand is absolutely lazy, like really relaxed between hits. So you drop the hand, and while you raise the forearm, you release the fingers. Raise the forearm, release the fingers. And then you activate the tips of the fingers just for the hit, like that. It should feel quite loose. And of course, again, for the crescendo, we start the passage a little bit smoother. So the first 3 octaves, pom, 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 they are lighter. And then you add a little bit of power toward the last 3 of them. Here we have to mark that one properly because we have a syncopated note.